ready when the team is ready. Welcome everyone. I, Councilmember Tolomartz, call the Tuesday, September 20th, 2022 City Council Services, Safety and Parks Committee meeting to order. There are multiple public comment opportunities at tonight's meeting. There's a general public comment opportunity at the beginning of the meeting, or you can make comments after the presentation and council question and answer period on tonight's single agenda item. Members of the public may address council at this time, in person or virtually. Those who are signed up in advance to make comments will be called on first. If you are joining us virtually and would like to make comments, please raise your virtual hand. That means if you're on the phone, press *3, or if you have joined by computer or smartphone, look for a hand icon. This varies by device. One option may be to go to the participant panel and choose the raise hand icon in the lower right-hand corner. There's not anybody in the room, so I know we don't have any signups there. I will ask for other speakers before closing this portion of the meeting. I will wait for a moment to see if anyone raises their hand, either electronically or, well, it would be electronically. Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak or indicated a desire to speak this evening?
Chair Martz, no one has signed up to speak previously, and we have no virtual attendees at the moment.
Well, there we go. Thank you so much. As a reminder, written comments can be submitted at any time to citycouncil@issaquah.gov. So, with that, we will move on to, as I mentioned, we have one item for consideration this evening. That is ID 1235, Vehicle Trespass Ordinance, and we're going to get a presentation from Rachel Bender-Turpin, our city attorney.
Hi everybody, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out, I want to make sure I was unmuted, but looks like you have me unmuted. And can you see the presentation of my share? I have to share my screen here, hold on a second. I want to share this one.
We certainly hear you just fine.
Perfect. Okay, this is it. Okay, I'm sharing, right? Okay, hello, good evening. Thanks for having me here. I'm Rachel Bender-Turpin. I'm your city attorney, and I'm here to discuss this legislation, which is legislation establishing new sections of the municipal code relating to vehicle trespass and vehicle trespass tools. The purpose of this presentation is to provide you a brief overview of the proposed ordinance and then to obtain council direction on moving forward with the legislation.
Or committee recommendation back to the full council.
Committee recommendation, thank you. Specifically the direction that we're looking for is feedback on whether to proceed with bringing forward proposed ordinance amending chapter 9.40 of the Issaquah Municipal Code, which is the crimes pertaining to property, to add a new section criminalizing vehicle trespass, which we'll discuss in greater detail momentarily, and adopting by reference an RCW, which is a state statute that criminalizes the making or possessing of motor vehicle tools.
All right.
A little background for you. There's been a statewide increase in crime over the past year, including vehicle prowls and thefts. According to a report from the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, there was a statewide increase in motor vehicle thefts of 27.3% and 100% increase in theft of motor vehicle parts over the past, or in 2021. So that's a pretty significant increase. And so we are looking at additional tools to help our police department and prosecutor deal with those. Motor vehicle theft is a felony, which means that it's typically, that means that it can only be charged as a felony by the King County Prosecutor's Office here in Issaquah. But it unfortunately, due to caseload demands, it's not always charged there. So we're looking for ways that our police department and our city prosecutor can still deal with these important cases in those instances when King County is not able to proceed with a case, whether it be for caseloads or maybe perhaps it doesn't quite meet their evidentiary standards.
Okay.
The proposed ordinance would amend this chapter of the city's criminal code, which is Title IX, to add a new section of code that criminalizes what's called vehicle trespass, and then to add another section of state law that we adopt by reference. Well, this is the language for the vehicle trespass code that would be added to Chapter 9.40. It would criminalize a person being found or knowingly entering a vehicle and remaining unlawfully in it when they had essentially not been invited to be in that vehicle. So if they were in a vehicle without permission of the vehicle's owner to be in that vehicle and essentially broke into the vehicle or were found in it under circumstances that for whatever reason didn't quite reach the threshold of theft of a motor vehicle that would be pursued as a felony in King County, we would be able to cite them and punish them for a misdemeanor in Issaquah Municipal Code or Court under this code provision. And then this is making or possessing motor vehicle theft tools, which is a state statute that is one of the state statutes that the city of Issaquah hasn't yet adopted by reference. And this statute prohibits and criminalizes the possession or making of various tools that are commonly used for breaking into vehicles or used to essentially hotwire vehicles to steal vehicles. So things like Slim Jims is a very common example of it. The jiggler keys are kind of fake keys that are used to start vehicles that don't belong to you. This and obviously there's a whole list here of other tools that would qualify as these types of tools. In order to be found as having committed a violation of this section, you would have to be found to have evidenced an intent to use these tools in the commission of a crime, such as theft of a motor vehicle or breaking into a motor vehicle. So it's not intended, nor would it be able to be used to penalize locksmiths or anyone like that who has a lawful purpose to have those tools with them. This is for people who clearly have these tools under circumstances that evidence an intent to use them to break into or steal a vehicle.
Okay, I have a question. So, so there's two parts to this, right? The first is this vehicle trespass part. The second being the tools part. What does it mean? Well, actually, first things first. The vehicle trespass part. What is the regional pedigree of this ordinance? My understanding is other municipalities have adopted it, and how has that worked in our understanding?
I took this. I believe that this language came from. I'm going to say I looked at several. I think this one is from Auburn, but it might have been from Kent. Well, like you said, many jurisdictions have ones that are pretty similar to this.
Right. I was aware of the Auburn because I believe Auburn was the first city in King County to have this sort of an ordinance. So how's it worked? How's it worked for cities that have adopted it?
Well, it allows them to proceed when King County won't take action. I mean, I think that's the biggest.
Yeah, no,
The
I
biggest
wasn't, I'm sorry,
way.
I wasn't clear in my question. I mean, what's been the public safety impact, and has there been any legal issues associated with adopting this?
I'm not aware of any legal issues that have been associated with it, but I don't have any statistics on whether or not there's been, a drop in property crimes there.
Okay, now then on the second part, I'm not as familiar with this one about vehicle theft tools. And what does it mean to adopt the RCW? What is the practical impact of doing that?
There have actually been cases in court cases about this, but the state statutes essentially authorize the state courts and the state prosecutors to enforce those laws. They're enacted by the state legislature, and unless they specifically delegate enforcement responsibility to local jurisdictions, the jurisdiction to enforce those is state courts. And so there have been cases that have found that when municipalities have attempted to enforce those state statutes, that it was invalid unless the municipality had specifically adopted those state statutes by reference, which means within their own municipal code, they state that they have the intent to adopt this particular state statute as though it were set forth in their municipal code in its entirety, as though it were a city of Issaquah provision.
Got it.
So that it could be enforced with by the Issaquah Police Department, and so that jurisdiction is properly held within Issaquah Municipal Court.
All right. Have we talked to, I've talked to the chief about the vehicle trespass portion, and I know the IPD is comfortable with this potentially. Have we talked to the IPD about the adopting the RCW on vehicle theft tools? Do we know that the IPD is supportive of this potential action?
Yes, the IPD is supportive of both pieces of the legislation, as is the prosecutor's office. Lynn Moberly, the Issaquah prosecutor, was going to be here this evening, but unfortunately had a last-minute medical issue and couldn't attend. But yes, she's reviewed it all and is supportive and thought that it looked good.
Thank you. Barb, do you have any questions right now? Before, I realize we're still in the middle of the presentation, but since
yeah, but we're pretty close to the end, I think so. I sent Rachel a couple of questions ahead of time, and I told her not to respond because I wanted to ask them in public so that the community knows the answers. So my first question, what distinguishes motor vehicle theft tools from other tools? And would such tools be readily identifiable by officers? And I think you sort of answered this, Rachel, but the reason I asked that question is I'm wondering if an officer can spot these as just motor vehicle theft tools, or if there has to be an associated crime to so identify the tools. I think you did answer that, but do you want to explain it again?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the RCW is helpful because it does give a pretty good list of what examples of motor vehicle theft tools would include. It does say, included but not limited to. So if folks get real creative, we can still bring charges against people if they come up with another tool or they're creatively using a an existing tool for these purposes, but it's essentially a tool that, shown by the facts and circumstances of its use, is clearly be intended to be used in the commission of a motor vehicle related theft. So either to break into a vehicle or to steal a vehicle.
So a person just driving around with tools in their trunk or something, who's maybe stopped for a traffic stop, is not going to be, would not be subject to this if there's no related vehicle break-in crime associated with that person?
No, they would not. They would not, because they wouldn't, there would be no circumstances evidencing a crime.
Okay. And then my other question was, I'm assuming that a person using a vehicle with the permission of the owner is not entering unlawfully, no matter how long they remain in the vehicle. And the reason I ask that question is because we do have a number of people in our community experiencing homelessness. Some of them, it could happen that they could be living in a car that doesn't belong to them, but with the permission of the owner. And so I'm wondering, first of all, I think it's pretty clear that that wouldn't initially at least affect them. But what kind of documentation would you have to have for a police officer to know that you had the permission of the owner?
I think that you would, well, I think in order to prosecute this, you would have to have a statement from the owner saying that that they didn't have permission, I think is the most important thing here, because you wouldn't be able to proceed with this unless we could establish that they didn't have permission. So there would be no assumption that they didn't have permission, but I think if they had, even a note, that would be enough. And then of course the police might need to follow up on that, but they're not going to just arrest someone.
Right.
If they have some sort of, documentation from from a registered owner.
I just always worry about how people interpret laws. But in your mind, it's clear that that would not apply to someone who has permission, even if they're homeless and living in a car.
No, yeah, correct. Yes, because as long as they've been, it's someone's only not invited if they are not licensed or invited or otherwise privileged. So if someone's given them permission, then the elements of this crime are not met, and they couldn't be established in court. You wouldn't even have probable cause.
Okay, thank you. Those are my two questions.
I want to expound on that last one. So I'm driving down the street in a car, and the IPD pulls me over, and they say license and registration, and I give them my license, and I pull the registration out of the glove box, and the car's registered to Bob Smith, and they say, "You're not Bob Smith," and I say, "No, but I have Bob Smith's permission to use this car." What happens then?
I think at that point they would then contact Bob Smith. I mean, in general, normally when to pursue, they assume that you have permission to. People drive other people's cars all the time. Typically when you get cited for stealing a car, it's because there's a I can blanking on the word, but there's a
It's reported stolen?
It's been reported stolen. Yeah.
Okay.
They've put out a bulletin, or I think it's what it's called. Yeah. But it's been reported as stolen.
Okay, so it's not just gonna be, I get pulled over for speeding or busted taillight or whatever, and because my license doesn't match the registration, they're gonna automatically assume that I've stolen the car, or are they gonna, in
No,
those
absolutely
situations, are they
not.
gonna have to double check? Is it sufficient that they double check that the car has not been reported stolen, or will they actually
Yeah, that's
contact
usually
Bob
what they
Smith?
do, is they just check to make sure the car hasn't been reported stolen, unless there's really some sort of, there have to be really suspicious circumstances. I mean, if the car hasn't been reported stolen, but there is a Slim Jim on
Right,
the
right.
passenger.
Or
So,
the steering column is broken.
yeah, exactly. If it seems, if it seems otherwise really suspicious, then yeah, then they might do a little bit more investigation. But without that report of being stolen, I don't think they have, I don't think that alone establishes probable cause.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Huh?
So I will let you continue with the remainder of your presentation.
Okay. Oh, up here. All right, so the options before the council this evening are to adopt, the options moving forward would be to adopt the proposed ordinance, which would result in a couple more tools to combat crime. Not to adopt the proposed ordinance, which would result in no additional tools, but which we would just continue to rely on the tools that we already have, which we do have tools. Or we could adopt an amended version of the proposed ordinance, for instance, adopting one of these two tools, but not the other. So the committee really has the choice to make a recommendation to the full council on any of those three options, but the administration recommends forwarding the proposed ordinance as written to the full council for adoption at the regular meeting on October 3rd.
Okay.
Which is the next steps, which would be that we recommend that it come back at the city council meeting at the next meeting. We recommend that it be put on consent for the next meeting, but once again, that is up to this body to make a recommendation on. I'm here for any additional questions, but if not, otherwise, I'll take whatever direction you would like to provide after you discuss. Thank you.
Certainly. So I think I had one other question. Oh, yeah. How did we find, what was the genesis of this adding of the theft tools? Because I had been aware that Auburn had adopted the vehicle trespass piece, but I had not, it was somewhat of a surprise to me to see this theft tools. Has that also been adopted? Like, where did this come from, the second part?
It's been adopted by many cities, most of the cities I've worked in, so it was on my radar, and the police department specifically asked for it.
Got it. That answers my question. So I will ask the clerk if if anyone has joined remotely that might potentially offer public comment.
Chair Martz, there is nobody attending virtually.
Disappointing. Councilmember DiMichele, if you don't have any other questions, then we can move to discussion and deliberation on our recommendation back to the full council.
Thank you. I will be supporting this and support sending it forward to the full council. Chief Swan and I were in a public forum about a week and a half ago, and we heard stories from members of that group of audience members about car thefts and the rise in crime and the concern about crime increasing in neighborhoods that have not ever experienced it before or haven't experienced it at the level that's occurring now. And so I think that we should be giving our police officers as many tools as they can have to obviously control the situation. As far as putting it on the consent agenda, I'm a little bit torn because this is a question that is of high concern to our community. It might be important for them to know that we're doing this, and sometimes things on the consent agenda are not noticed. And so I'm just wondering if it might be worth a brief discussion at the council. I can't imagine that the council will not support it, but of course that's up to them. But just for public information, I'm wondering if we want to put it on the regular agenda. But I did hear the recommendation from our lawyer, so I'll listen to what Councilmember Martz has to say about that.
Was there a recommendation to put this on consent agenda? I'm not,
Yes, that's just what you just said, yeah.
oh, I'm not seeing it in the written materials.
No,
And usually,
I am fine with whatever with that. It seems like it would not be controversial, which is why
I agree. That's not
suggested that.
controversial.
However, I do see the wisdom in discussing it publicly.
Yeah, we're receiving a number of emails kind of on a regular basis from people in different parts of our community. And then again, having been at that forum, that public discussion about a week and a half ago, it's really a deep level of concern in our community. And I agree with you that it's kind of a slam dunk. But I just wonder if it isn't worth calling out so that our community knows we're taking action on their behalf.
I couldn't agree more. I would like to have a giant banner in the sky that says, we've just adopted, assuming the full council were to adopt it,
Yeah.
This measure. And I know that there is a movement afoot led by South King County cities, right? To have while still maintaining a compassionate and, reform-based legal system, to put more teeth into addressing property crime and these the crimes that are occurring in higher frequency in King County. So I think as many, I hope every city does this. And so I'm totally with you. I think it should be regular business. I think it could be a very short. I don't even think staff needs to make a presentation. I think I would be comfortable presenting this as the committee chair.
Yeah.
And having it be on regular business, and maybe having our attorney, you're there for our council meetings anyhow, right? Or you're there.
Yeah, I'm there.
So, you could just be available for questions, but I'd be fine fielding it just myself on regular business. But, so I think what you're hearing is a 2-0 recommendation to bring this back to the full council on regular business, October 3rd.
Yep.
And like I said, I'll be happy to make a short presentation on it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to do this one as well. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I don't think we need the full, the presentation you gave us here today. I don't think we need to go through that at full council. I think I can just report it out.
Oh, perfect.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right. Well, that concludes our one piece of business this evening. So, according to the agenda, we're done. So, this meeting is adjourned at 6:58 p.m. And thank you, everyone watching at home.